And good evening, everybody. This is welcome to Camarilla Cafe, episode 12. I actually confused myself because the broadcast says episode 11. It is, in fact, episode 12. This is not a replay. And I'm here with Chris Bonica, as well as
evening.
Mundane, the Mouth Marauder. How are you guys doing tonight?
Doing great.
Excellent.
Did you hear the new nickname? Marauder?
I did.
The Mouth?
The mouth.
I don't think that's not fitting. Do you disagree?
I mean, it depends on in what way you're saying mouth.
Well,
Got a purty mouth.
it depends on how somebody takes
Heard
it.
him out there, boy.
Potentially not. So it was all what was that new term we're going to use? Mimbly pimbly?
Pimbly pimbly.
That the second we hit broadcast, I hadn't checked Restream, and then all of a sudden everything came up on all of our streaming networks as episode 11, and I was like, oh wow, this is episode 11, but it's not.
The show's all mimbly pimbly.
Mimbly pimbly, and we're back on YouTube. I never actually checked to see why we were taken off last week, but we are back, and but this week we won't be doing a video. But I wanted to kind of continue the discussion we were having last week. We were talking about a lot of ancient religions with ancient peoples, religions that I feel humans have been following for a lot longer than we're led to believe, or at least told. It's a big part of our past as a species that we don't really dig into all that often. Like they barely, I think in school, I heard about it maybe once or twice. In context to the ancient Egyptians and the Mayans, like they mentioned it in the topic, but they didn't mention it as some type of worldwide phenomena. And even when we hear about things like Greek mythology, right, they use the term mythology, but they don't say religion. And I know we covered that in another episode, but, it still always kind of boggles me why they don't teach that as a religion. What do you guys think?
Well, they don't teach it as a religion, but they teach it as mythology. And I guess it's because religion these days is really just considered like a monotheistic idea or creation, right? So, and those other religions, if you want to call them religions, are I don't know. It's almost like they took that aspect out of them, and for what reason, So,
Well, the
I guess
theism part of it.
the theism, correct?
What about you, Mundane? Let's go over your vision of religion, because actually I have the Wikipedia definition up so that we can actually go over for a moment what our species defines as religion, because I think it's applicable to more than just a set of religious beliefs or a set of beliefs from an ancient novel. I don't think it's necessarily just that, but yeah, Mundane, you had a lot to say last week.
Yeah, I did. I'm probably gonna get yelled at again this week.
The mouth.
It is what it is. My definition of religion would definitely not fit whatever you have pulled up on Wikipedia. Or you know what? It might, but the definition say would maybe fit. What I actually think of religion definitely wouldn't fit what that Wikipedia page says.
So go on, say it.
Say my definition of religion?
Yes.
My definition of religion is I believe that there would be a higher power that people should believe in, not so much worship. They should just believe that there is something else out there, but it would be more so an energy than a person or a figure. And yeah, I could say that there could realistically be more than one thing. It could be an energy and like spiritual thing. It's hard to describe. In not traditional sense of, oh, there's this one person that I'm going to worship, or these like four people that were gods that I'm going to worship. Just it's more so a larger than just a figurehead.
Right. But do you believe it is like the belief behind a conscious or multiple conscious energies?
No, I don't think the energy would be conscious.
Okay.
I believe you are the conscious for that energy. Whatever you put out is the energy you get in return.
Okay. Okay.
So it's your consciousness that brings it to life, right?
So to speak. So say you uh kick a baby on your way home. I believe that that's going to turn around to you, kind of like karma. That's going to turn around on you. And that's going to create bad energy around you that will eventually, if you build up enough bad energy, will decide that it's your time to go and just take you out.
It's your time to go. So I also want to say hello to Vicky. She is and Kevin. What's going on, guys? They're watching us over on Facebook. Sorry, I'm getting a little stumbly tonight. They're catching us on Facebook tonight. And I have a couple of statements from I Am Not You on Twitch right now. He says, they aren't taught as religions because nobody believes in them anymore. Yes, I agree with that. I guess on a large scale, we don't advertise that anybody believes in them anymore. I don't know if I fully agree with that statement, but to a certain extent, yes, because on a larger percentage, most people in the world do not believe them. But I would imagine that anybody that is polytheistic, which is defined by paganism, would technically fall under that. Now, whether they believe in the Greek variation or the Roman variation or whatever variation of it is, it's still polytheism. So, and he also says religion in essence is any belief in something without proof. That's actually, well, what if somebody pulled up a proof in God and you still practice the teachings? So if there is proof for that God and you're still practicing the teachings, does that make you not religious anymore? Because it's not defined as a religion under that context. So, yeah.
But I just wanted to add that could it be that no one believes in them because they don't teach it as a religion? They'll say it's either a dead religion or it's, they treat it more as like something archaeological rather than a faith or a religion. I don't believe that. That's another thing. I don't believe that religion and faith really go hand in hand. So that's
a good point. You could look at it that way. So I'll switch over right now to the guest news. So we're on Wikipedia right now. And just from the first statement here, it says religion is a social cultural system of designated behaviors and practices, morals, beliefs, worldviews, texts, sanctified places, prophecies, ethics, or organizations that relates humanity to supernatural, transcendental, and spiritual elements. However, there is no scholarly consensus over what precisely constitutes a religion. So, by their technical definition, that actually means that a lot of things we don't regard as religion can actually be considered religion. It depends on how devoted somebody is to it. So, again, it says designated behaviors and practices, morals, beliefs, worldviews, texts, sanctified places, prophecies, ethics, or organizations. And in relation to supernatural. So I guess in relation to supernatural would be under what you guys were talking about. And I Am Not You mentioned something that you have no proof in or something that is of a higher being. But that's only a sub context of what's considered a religion in total. What do you guys think?
Hey, it's a lot to take
I keep pulling you guys in.
That was a lot.
So I mean, I get it. So anything can be considered religion as long as you got some kind of deity or something that you're believing in, So, I mean, that just opens the way for tax breaks. But,
well, from a New York state of mind, yes, it opens you up to some tax deductions.
So, in other words, last week when I said that Camarilla Cafe is my religion and I believe in Camarillaism, I was correct.
Theoretically, by their definition, yes. Organizations.
Just please tell me you're not praying to Lou, for God's sake.
Well, we are. We are under practices, morals, worldviews, sanctified places, since this is a sanctified virtual place, and organization, ethics, of course. Yes. This is a religion. What did you name it?
Camarillaism.
Camarillaism. That's good. I kind of
We
like
all-
that. Maybe we should
and
make some
once a week-
shirts
And once a week, we go to a cafe
and we
sit
break
around
bread.
and listen to this guy in glasses with a beard say dumb shit.
Wow. Do we break bread with him? Does he break bread with you, Mundane?
Sorry, I don't have any bread. Not going on here.
So we'll go a little more into context here. So different religions may or may not contain various elements ranging from the divine, sacred things, faith, a supernatural being, or supernatural beings, or some sort of ultimacy or transcendence that will provide norms and power for the rest of life. So it's basically stating that, yes, if something is a designated practice and not necessarily a belief or faith in something that's supernatural, it is defined under religion. So let's say if somebody subscribes to a certain amount of behaviors and ethics. So let's say you make, you title a group of thoughts into a certain side of a thought process, and then you align that with a certain dress, presentation, and a certain facade that you constantly carry with you, that can be considered a religion, right?
Yes.
Sounds about right.
You sound like you choked a little when I asked right.
Well, yes. and
Almost
that's
as
why
if I'm
everybody should
assuming
go buy
something.
some merch from Camarilla Cafe.
Yes, definitely. I'm
Support your
actually,
religion.
I should actually make a couple of shirts about that now because, and I have to admit, you're like Nostradamus. You called it last week. You said it again this week, and you're correct. By their definition, we are a religion. And I'm happy to have you, Mundane. I bless you, Mundane.
Oh boy.
Well,
We know what loose.
okay, guys, I'm gonna
sacraments
have
is,
to take a breather.
So,
Oh
yes.
boy.
So we'll dig a little more into this. Let's see. Religious practices may include rituals, sermons, commemoration or veneration of deities and or saints, sacrifices, festivals, feasts, trances, initiations, funerary services, matrimonial services, meditation, prayer, music, whatever. Okay. So we're beating a dead horse now. So I want to bring up one thing. So last week we were also talking about how the special that we were watching presented the case that the religion was actually changed due to the government's control of the population and the change they wanted to bring upon. And we had just spoken about the Greek mythology. Could that be a reason they didn't want people to believe in that any longer or see it as something that was viable to be a religion any longer? So in the context of a population, they changed it to mythology rather than religion? Like just by changing that definition?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think the general consensus is that religion nowadays is the belief under one, deity or something. So, and and I do feel like under that, the government itself has a lot more control over its beliefs.
Right. Well, we're witnessing a certain time. I'm not going to get too much into detail with it, but recently we've seen definitions change without notification of definition changing.
Right.
We've seen things become redefined. And, I've always asked that question about why it's called mythology and not religion. So now, under what we just spoke about, it could be assumed that they're kind of showing you it, but saying, hey, this isn't a religion. So if you're to claim somebody believes it, they'll say it's not religion. Or if you're searching for purpose and you say, I'm looking for religions, you're not going to consider it something that's viable because on a population level or on a, on a human societal level, you're not going to consider it a religion, right? It's just not defined as that anymore.
Right.
Or they're just trying to shun it as a religion because the less religions, the less different churches, and the more money goes towards the one that, everybody follows.
Or you can't assume that somebody practices it because it's not a religion. Right?
Well, now you're just going back to the definition.
Well, no, I'm saying like the more you take out of the conscious mind, the less somebody will look in that direction, right? So if somebody was sacrificing a cat next door to me, and I said, "Hey, what are you, a Satanist?" He goes, "No, I'm not a Satanist." The only thing that I think about in current context is you sacrificing to Satan. But he doesn't believe in Satan. He believes in Greek mythology. And therefore, by technicality, he's doing it for somebody else. So I can't identify what he's doing. He's not lying to me, but I'm misidentifying what he's doing because I'm not aware of his belief, because it's not within my frame of reference of what I'm taught, what I've been indoctrinated in school all this time, right?
Okay, yeah. I wouldn't have went straight to Satanism if he was sacrificing a cat. I just think he was a psychopath and to maybe not get murdered by him.
Well, I'm saying like if you see like a ritual happening, not somebody just sitting there just gutting a cat. I mean, you see a symbol on the floor, you see candles up. Now you can consider that it's a preconceived situation in which somebody is engaging in something. That's where I would differentiate a ritual from someone who's just, and not to say that somebody who's doing a ritual isn't a psycho. Not to say they are. But you get what I'm saying? If I were to see a whole thing that looks like one, because all that effort put in would assume that it's a ritual. Without that preparation, you could assume it's not. I think that's a safe bet. But that's a good way of kind of like hiding things, right?
Yeah, it kind of just pushes it out of your mind, out of sight, out of mind.
Right. It pushes it out of your vocabulary. It pushes you out of conscious thought, pushes it out of knowledge. If somebody has no knowledge of what it is, and if somebody's going to dodge the denial of it, they can easily just turn around and say, no, that's not what it is. But they know what it is, but you're accusing them of the wrong thing.
Right. We're going back to Orwellianism.
Yes. You change things to dodge certain things. So,
right.
Let's see. We got some comments here. Let me not fall too far behind on that one. So I'm checking Facebook right now. Kevin Reiser is at Bourbon Street Blues Bar, and he's currently bored. Thank you for tuning in, Kevin. That's good that whatever entertainment they have there, we are more entertaining. Thank you to our House of the Holy, as Mundane would put it. Victoria says, well, not everyone worshipped all of the Greek gods. You had different sects who worship different gods and goddesses. So that umbrella term is a bit broad, because it is not one religion. Think Elder Scrolls and the Daedric princes. More accurate. Well, I don't think that... it's still the same religion, right? If it's the same set of gods, regardless of, like, let's say if you pick the Daedric instead of the Aedra, you're believing in the Daedric because you're believing in the existence of the Aedra, right? Both of them exist to you. You're just dedicating yourself to one of them rather than the other one. So you're thinking of it in terms of monotheism. Monotheism is as one God, and you're in this religion because that's the one God you're looking at. But I think that if you're to subscribe to a God that's part of a set of gods and debate that God as being the most powerful against the others, you're immediately in polytheism. You understand what I'm saying? So if you accept Christ as the Son of God, you're shunning the other beliefs taught in the Muslim religion just by the choice. Am I correct or not, guys? What do you think?
Well, it kind of sounds like Catholicism, right? How many different types of Catholicism are there, you know?
But there aren't multiple gods in Catholicism.
No, but I'm just saying
there's angels. There's different tiers.
There's different sects.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
But it all leads to the same God.
Right. And polytheism, if you believe in any part of it, I would imagine you believe in the rest of it because it's a one umbrella of knowledge. It's a one. So I would think that if you subscribe to any of it, you subscribe to all of it. You're just proclaiming which is the main one to you if you pick one and not the others. That's kind of the way I would think about it.
Right.
And we have Trinity in. What's going on, Trinity? Yo, she's over on Twitch. I'm going to check YouTube here. YouTube's doing good. We're not getting thrown off yet, so that's fantastic.
Not yet is the key word.
So let's
You know,
see here.
When you went to YouTube and you were like, it's doing good over there, we're not getting thrown off yet. I really wanted to be like, I've got some keywords that'll get it thrown off real quick.
Oh man. So I'm gonna keep this page open, the religion page, because I'm seeing a lot of stuff here, modern, Western, classical. But I did have an article that I wanted to go over. We were leading into it last week. It was paganism and Christianity. So we had discussed how the politics got involved and some of the gods from one became a kind of god in the next, but a fusion of them, right? And they were kind of doing this politically in order to, I guess, lead the people into the new way. And back then, the religious leaders were the leaders. That's why, who was the famous guy? And he was a terrible guy if you look in history. Was it the one, King James, who edited the Catholic Bible?
Oh, the King James Bible, which is what we all go by today.
Right. So the king directly influenced the religion of the people. He was almost like a priest. I mean, I don't know back then what he would have been completely considered, but almost.
Well,
So
he had control of literally the Bible, you know, the direct source.
Mhm. Yeah,
So,
he affected it all the way to this day. I mean, if we can't prove that, if anybody got their grubby little sneaky fingers in since then, I mean, any publisher could have updated something. You know, I'm starting to think that we're noticing these things now because I think technology grew at a rate that they couldn't get a full grip of it. So I think information is being disseminated at light speed. And the people who are trying to hide things can't hide it fast enough. I mean, they want you to see some of it. They want to see who's noticing and who's not. That's without a doubt. But at the same time, they're not developing the technology to keep track of it as fast as the tech is moving forward. You guys have so much to say tonight.
oh yeah, it's just full of words.
I love it. The second I pulled mundane into the religious end of it, that was it. He checked out. Mundane, I'm a fair and loving God. I just want you to know that. You're welcome in my home. I ain't gonna wash your feet though. That's Jesus. And if you're here, you ain't Catholic.
Lives in the land of golden showers.
We can do that for you, Mundane. I will. I will knight you, my son.
I'm afraid.
I think he's actually uncomfortable.
Oh yeah. He got really quiet, and all of a sudden he's just checking out mentally.
Well, it just got really weird really quickly. So,
what? Me telling you I'll anoint you? I don't know what's wrong. So we were going to lead into like, okay, so the end of paganism was literally marked by Christianity. So Christianity kind of murdered it. And thank you, Trinity. So she before we go forward, she says most religions can be traced back to one main idea, but each one kind of puts their own twist on that same idea. I also believe the same as Mundane when it comes to more a spiritualistic belief over one main figurehead, but the topic of religion is always something that I personally tread lightly. Lord Larocco, amen. Thank you, my young Trinity. Oh, that even sounds religious. That's great. So now we'll come over.
The Holy Trinity, yeah.
And I Am Not You also says any tech released to the public is more than countered by something the government has. Info is released or allowed to be disseminated on purpose. So yeah, I believe to a certain extent, like I said, a lot of the stuff that comes out, I do think is intentional. I do think they want you to see it and they want you to deal with it or accept it. But at the same time, I think there are certain things, especially things that happen in public, that come out of people's personal devices way too fast, unless they want you to know that they're completely lying. Do you guys think they have total control over everything we have? Like that's when a product hits consumerism?
I don't think they have total control. They definitely have some control over it, but there's also been a decent amount of stuff that has come out, and then you saw them scramble like it was not planned or they did not know what was going to happen. So there's definitely some stuff that has slipped past them.
What are you referring to?
What am I referring to?
The thing that'll
like
get us kicked off?
Some certain people's black books that all of a sudden appeared, and then all of a sudden everybody was like, oh shit.
Well, to a certain extent, they might. See, here's the thing. And so leaders throughout time always led by fear. Always led by fear. And classically, that's been the main thing, right? Look at Vlad the Impaler even. And some of our leaders these days are direct descendants of Vlad the Impaler. I have the article. It's in our Discord. If anyone would like to join again, let me just drop that. CamarillaCafe.com. The first thing you hit on that page will be a direct link to our Discord. It's an open door. Come in. And some of our leaders are direct descendants of Vlad the Impaler. And he would surround his kingdom with dead bodies so that people knew where they were entering. So everybody he had under his control. So you can kind of look at certain things being released and the fact that we can't stop it as a form of like a demoralization. You know, because I hear a lot of people tell me these days, what are you going to do about it? It is what it is. That's going to happen no matter what you do. There's nothing you can do about it. Certain people are in certain positions, and that's it. Just go to work in the morning. And if you think about, you know, the hundreds or thousands of years that populations have lived under tyrants, under fear, they've lived that way. And entire cultures have, I don't want to use the term prosper, but they've run, you know, a nice normal day with that being in frame. So a lot of these guys might be releasing this on purpose to say, okay, let's pick off the 1, 2, maybe a couple of hundred people that are going to do something about it. But in mass, nobody's going to do anything about it.
Yeah, I feel like that whole what are you going to do about it thing is, I feel like that's what was spoken to a few people throughout history that caused major changes in our government. Like Lee Harvey Oswald and John Wilkes Booth. I feel like someone was like, what are you going to do about it? And then they went and murdered a president. So,
well, that's still not in full context. I mean, and especially in a current context, when you see so many royal families just pushing everything, you know, and I am not, you just said illusion. So, and I'm not sure what that's exactly in context to, of what we said that it was in context to, but you know, I think a lot of it is just kind of hurting people on purpose. Like, you're not going to get up, so this is what you're going to live with. Because, I mean, we can make a generalized statement of what we're being run by now. I think we all know what we are being run by now. And we'll either cover that a little bit again in this episode. I mean, we practically cover it in every episode, right? That's part of the religion, is to go after specifically them. And people may not know it yet, but that's what this episode's about too. So, and Trinity says, you're welcome. Is Trump a direct descendant? Because that would make so much sense. I don't have a line of exactly where Trump came from, but I can tell you that Fred Trump was one of the guys. He worked for the government. He was some type of scientist. I think it was Fred Trump or Frank Trump. It was either Fred or Frank. He was the guy personally who took Tesla's actual paperwork out of his apartment. I know that because there is also the conspiracy theory about a book that was written about Baron Trump going back in time, creating a time machine, going back in time and forward in time. And it was about Baron Trump, whose father was named Donald Trump. And the book was written in the 80s. And Baron Trump is not even 20 years old. So somebody did something on purpose. I don't know what it is, but I do know that Donald Trump did not become a millionaire. He became a billionaire based off his father's millions. So he does come from a line of people that has wealth. So, and let's see. So I am not you also said illusion in reference to unintentional leaks and scrambling to cover them up. So maybe that, like, it's all an act.
yeah,
It could be.
I mean, anything you throw out there that you think it could be can be countered. So you can go all night doing that.
Yeah. And I Am Not You also said some people on ATS, which for anyone who doesn't go onto the forums is above top secret. Some people on above top secret believe that Donald Trump is John Titor. And anyone who's never seen the stories about John Titor, he was really, really big on the Reddit forums, above top secret, and like 8chan and 4chan. Really big conspiracy going around. John Titor himself was supposed to be a time traveler. I forgot exactly how that whole entire thing ended. I think something that he said didn't happen. And yeah, we'll cover that on another episode. John Titor's a really interesting topic to go along. But yes, he might be linked. Who knows? So we were about to get into paganism and Christianity for anyone who wasn't aware of this. And I believe a lot of people out there are aware of this. So headline says many aspects of traditional Christianity, holidays, practices, and doctrines come not from Christ or the Bible, but from ancient pagan religion. So this specific article brings up the traditional holidays with their annual rituals are coming, Halloween costumes, Christmas decorations, Easter bunnies. Where did those traditions and practices come from? Celebrated as Christian holidays, shouldn't those occasions be faithful to what the Bible says? So it brings up a couple of things. So jack-o'-lanterns for Halloween. They've been around for centuries as part of the ancient Celtic celebration at the start of the winter season. The Druids, a sort of pagan priesthood, believed that at this time of year, the barriers between our world and the supernatural weakened and broke down. So that comes from, I'm not going to read the entire paragraph because we could be here for 7 hours reading these. But yes, Halloween came from a Druid. It was also known as All Saints' Day, All Hallows' Eve. So here's carved vegetables, talismans against evil spirits, human sacrifice. These are not in line with the teaching of Jesus Christ, which I think everybody knows. Halloween is still looked at by some as All Hallows' Eve, the night before the Catholic All Saints' Day, a supposedly holy occasion. So I think that's the one that's really obvious, Halloween, as being pagan in nature. But the main one is Christmas and Easter. I don't think a lot of people realize, where did that come from? I didn't realize it was that loud. But I can't check that right now. So it says the Druids in ancient France and Britain staged a 12-day festival at the time of the winter solstice. They believed it was the high point of an annual battle between an ice giant representing death and the sun god representing light. They built life. They built large bonfires to cheer on and assist their champion, the sun. The Druids and other pagan leaders knew, as we do today, that the days always get longer as the calendar progresses toward the winter, toward spring, regardless of their seasonal rituals, but they still persisted in them. Unfortunately, so does much of Christianity today. What is today thought to be the celebration of the birth of Christ began as the pagan midwinter festival. One unbiblical tradition of this holiday is the use of greenery. Decorating with green plants in late December through the beginning of January was one of the ways Druids honored and encouraged the sun god at the time of the winter solstice. Families commonly cut down an evergreen tree to bring into their home, where they decorated and displayed it in a prominent place. In the Middle Ages, this ritual of paganism persisted and was eventually adopted and given a Christian label, as Roman Catholic missionaries worked to convince people to worship the Son of God rather than the sun god. In due course, German immigrants brought the practice of decorating evergreen trees to America, where it flourished. As you may have already guessed, the 12 days of Christmas of the famous carol owe to their origin to the pagan festival too. It says Ibid in quotations. For more on the pagan origins of this holiday, see Is Christmas Phony? I mean, if one of you guys can tell me, what does a Christmas tree have to do with Jesus?
I don't know, because he was born in the desert, so there weren't pine trees. But there's other things too that are pagan. So like even like headdress and wear. So like a Dagon priest wore a fish hat, and so does the Catholic Pope. So and there's a lot of similarities besides just tradition, but also garb and all kinds of other things. So
I want to know why Christianity had to get rid of all the fires and murder. Seems like a great time.
Did they though?
I guess it depends on. Well, they got rid of it up front. They're not doing it for everybody to see.
When it became an environmental concern, then recently they were like, okay, we got to put an end to that.
Wow. So
But that is one thing that a lot of pagan rituals seem to have in common: fire.
Yes.
They want to light every fucking thing on fire.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We actually had a quite a few events through the last few summers with a lot of arson and fire.
It's the pagans. They're back at it again.
In Tennessee? Or just,
all over the
around
United
country?
States. So,
Oh, and how about Australia? Right, they had half the country burnt down.
they had a couple. They had a few
Yeah.
things going
Goddamn
on.
pagans.
So, and we also have I Am Not You stated on Twitch. The word Easter is of Saxon origin. Iestra, the goddess of spring, in whose honor sacrifices were offered about Passover time each year. By the 8th century, Anglo-Saxons had adopted the name to designate the celebration of Christ's resurrection. Christianity is the amalgamation of Judaism and sun god worship, as you just read. Islam is the opposite, the amalgamation of Judaism and the Arab pagan moon worship. Fire is seen as cleansing. So the next time you're feeling a little dirty, Chris, you gotta take a shower, just jump in the fireplace.
All right.
So let me jump. You sent me a great article, by the way. That was the message I got, and I had to switch off really quickly.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was going to be that loud. So yeah, one of the things it shows is he just said the sun god, right? So with Shamash, the sun god is on the Pope's hat. It's in the Vatican. It's all over Christian symbols. So what he just said was dead on, because that was something I had wanted to
Let
bring
me
up.
switch over real quick. We'll hit the news again. And this is the article you just sent me. So if you read the word of God, you will find no scripture to support the use of symbols or images or statues in our faith. In fact, God even warned us not to use images in his law. So we have a few things here. Exodus 20, 4-5. I don't want to get too much into the Bible itself, but I'll read the case that they're making. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God. Wow. Visiting the iniquity? Visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the 3rd and 4th generation of them that hate them. That sounds like a rough God there. So this seems to be a nice big amount. So below is a small sample of pictures showing the link between the Babylonian paganism and the Roman Catholic Church. So here we see the same hat. You just mentioned the Dagon hat, the Catholic Pope with the fish hat. So the Catholic popes wear the same style hat as the old pagan priests who worship the fish god Dagon. There's Dagon, the fish god, on the bottom. He looks messed up, man. I wouldn't want to. I like having legs. Says a
You think
symbol.
he's upset that he doesn't have legs? This little.
And I Am Not You also said, as in the story of the phoenix born from the ashes, death as the transition to the rebirth. And I'm just switching over very quickly just to see if anybody had anything to add on Facebook. We're still running on YouTube. We're going to keep an eye on that. It's a victory the longer we stay on. So right here, we got the solar wheel, the symbol of Shamash, the sun god, and that's right on his hat. Wow. Like, it's almost right out in the open. Solar wheel at the Vatican, the symbol of the sun god. Sun god symbol seen here with Pope Francis. Yep, it's right on the bottom. The sun god Apollo on the temple. Jeez. And that's the Vatican.
It's pretty blatant.
Statue of a woman holding the same sun symbol at the Vatican. Wait, yeah, she's holding the symbol. She's holding the fucking symbol.
Mhm.
So, me and Chris had spoken earlier about this kind of our next one of our next episodes, either the next one or the one after that. We're going to be going over secret societies, which I think will start kind of tying this stuff in, because what I'm trying to do, at least as a host, is try and really embed this topic into everybody's brains so that everybody starts becoming prepared to hear what we're going to start getting into. So we're going to rewind back and come forward, because school obviously does not give any type of good historical education. They certainly don't at all. Arctic Edge official, what's going on? It's like holding the idea of hiding things in plain sight. Yep. That it certainly is. And that's, I believe, I could be wrong, but a lot of these secret societies, it was part of their religion to do it. And I'm not sure if that's part of paganism, to do things right in front of people in plain sight. I believe it's part of their actual belief system to have to do that, because they're not lying. And that also goes into what I had pointed out earlier. If we change the name of the god, and then you catch me praising that god, you're going to call it something it's not. And when I say that it's a lie, it's true. Because you're accusing me of something I'm not doing. Right? Like if I change the definition, if I rename a cat a dog, and I have a cat, and you say, hey, what's wrong with your dog? And I say, I don't have a dog. You guys are so quiet.
Sorry, I was looking something up. No, right. And this is something I feel like a lot of, when I bring this up, people don't get how there's a lot of brainwashing going on today in the media. And I know that's somewhere of where we're going, but yeah, it's and it's in your face. It really is. All these things are just right in your face, and you just look past them. The easiest way to hide something is to put it into plain sight.
Yes. And I actually just looked down the website too. And that's one of the biggest things. So, I mean, this is making a huge list here. Apis bull, possibly the image that Jews made in gold at Sinai. An Egyptian artifact here, a sun disk and crescent moon. Oh, yeah, those are Egyptian artifacts for sure. There's the Eye of Horus. Roman Catholic altar with Mary and sun disk inside a crescent moon. There's the Babylonian sun worship. Roman Catholic monstrance. Islamic temple. So, yeah, and it's kind of funny. And it's always above you, right? Like, look at the Egyptian symbols on the federal dollar. It's still there. Now, it makes you wonder if the people that are actually running the stuff are letting you know that they're from the same lineage and the same beliefs that are being passed down to you, right? Like, regardless of what they may discuss with you or feel they teach you, they're still showing to you that they're still doing the same thing, right? Like the all-seeing eye. Like, we're still the top of the pyramid and we're watching.
Yeah. It's like they're just trying to be like, hey, you stay in your place. We're still here.
Right. And we're the same people. We're the same thing, just a different brand. And this is one thing I wanted to get down to it just to show everybody. I always wondered about this too, because we have another one in DC, right? The obelisk. So we have an obelisk.
We have one in New York, right behind the Metropolitan Museum of Art. There's it's an obelisk from Egypt.
Yeah, there's one at the Vatican.
There's actually 3 obelisks in New York. There's one in Brooklyn, right? It's actually right where I live. There's another one, the one by the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and then there's one by Madison Square Park. And supposedly, if you look at an aerial view, it forms the same shape as the pieces at Giza.
Really?
Yeah. So the obelisk that was brought in to Central Park was done by the Freemasons, which we'll get into.
What a coinky dinky.
There are 78 federally recognized obelisks in the United States.
Yes. I mean, the Washington Monument is a giant obelisk.
What is define federally regulated?
No, federally recognized.
What does that mean?
Meaning someone didn't just put up an obelisk in their front yard. And they were like, here's another one.
So, but federally recognized as of being
purpose-built obelisks.
Okay, so federally placed.
Yes.
Because here is the one, the obelisk at the temple in Egypt, and there's the one at the Vatican. And then we have the 3 in New York City that he's talking about. And you said 78 in the United
78
States.
Across the U.S.
Wow. I know that we have in Nashville, we have a rebuild of the Temple of Isis, I believe. I have to look it up again. I was in there. It was pretty crazy. But yeah, here's the pagan goddess Isis with Horus the child. There's the sun disk. And yeah, that looks a lot like Mary. So I am not you says Christianity is also heavily tied to astrology. Jesus is the son of God. He has 12 disciples, 12 signs of the zodiac. He is referred to as the water bearer, zodiac sign Pisces, also referenced in the story where Jesus feeds the masses with 2 fish. The symbol of Pisces is 2 fish. Correction, the water bearer is not sign Pisces, it is Aquarius. Yes, they flaunt it, hidden in plain sight, as Arctic Edge quoted. These are obelisks all over the world. They're on in London. An obelisk, for those that do not know, is the symbol of Osiris's penis. He's got a pretty big penis. So it has also been charged that Catholicism is overlaid with many pagan incrustations. Catholicism is ready to accept that accusation and even to make it her boast. The great god Pan is not really dead. He is baptized. That's an interesting statement because I was about to get into that. It is interesting to note how often our church has availed herself of practices who were in common use among pagan. Thus, it is true in a certain sense that some Catholic rites and ceremonies are a reproduction of those of pagan creeds. So that first page that I had there that I was showing to everybody that I was using here. So let's bring this here. Let me bring you back to it. So paganism and Christianity, right? This comes from Beyond Today. This is something that I noticed when doing my research. So I started looking at it and I was like, oh, okay. Beyond Today. Let me read into this. And then I started wondering who Beyond Today, think about that phrase itself, Beyond Today is. So I started looking into this and, Frank Dunkel serves as a professor and coordinator of Ambassador Bible College. And then a guy named David Cobb is a member of the Indianapolis, Indiana Congregation of the United Church of God. So then I looked at that and I said, oh, wow, United Church of God. And then he was born and raised in God's church. So I kept looking down and I wanted to see what they were about. I could not necessarily find them, but I did go into their main one. It's the United Church of God, an international association preaching the gospel, preparing a people. And it says united in purpose. Jesus told the apostles to make disciplines in every nation. We teach, learn, and grow in grace and knowledge together. Find out what we're all about. So I'm going to get into, there's been a lot of talk on a lot of these message boards about our recent new pope. Dude, Mundane, you are just fading into the black over there. Is everything okay?
Yeah. I'm using Chrome and I have it turned into dark mode.
You are vanishing on us.
There we go. I got you.
So anyways, just the phraseology on this website and everything, I started to wonder. So there's been a lot of talk about the new pope that is representing the church. And a lot of people are theorizing that Catholicism itself is about to go through a ton of change. And they've already in recent times been asking their people to kind of accept new concepts. And they've become more acceptant of new concepts. And one of them I'm actually going to get into coming up. I think a lot of people are going to have something to say about it. It had to do with Biden meeting with the Pope recently. And the Pope's kind of his acceptance of a lot of the policies that we're moving towards. A lot of people argued that the Catholic Church shouldn't be behind a lot of the sociological change that's happening right now. And the new Pope kind of got behind it. And a lot of people just questioning what that is about. But yes, this is preaching the gospel, preparing a people. Under preparing a people, it says, our Father gave Jesus Christ to be our Lord and Savior. We are dedicated to God daily in our life. So I don't know what people are supposed to be preparing for. And it's a united church, and it's also the website that's showing you everything about paganism and Christianity, which is very odd. Because I don't know if you just go to a church and a priest would start talking about this. I don't know. Do you guys see anything just strange in that?
Yeah, it seems a little weird. I was trying to do some digging to see who actually owned the website, the ucg.org website. And it also appears that they have federally restricted any of their back-end information of who hosts their domain, who owns the domain, and stuff like that. When you enter it, it just says that the value entered is not valid and cannot be found.
That's a little strange.
It's like they're trying to hide who's actually in charge of that website.
I mean, look, I'm not directly accusing it of being a little strange. I just, like I said, the phraseology of everything and the fact that it's selling itself as a Christian or Catholic website or organization, and yet it's blatantly showing you the paganism and the religion, and it's beyond today. So it's kind of telling you, like, hey, paganism's part of it. We're moving beyond. And then it's just saying a lot of things like preparing people. And then united in purpose. What's the purpose? Like the phraseology and a lot of things that the information they're presenting is just a little strange. And actually, I Am Not You had just said something that I was going to bring up. On Twitch, he says, interesting that they brought up Pan, a pagan deity of mischief, because Pan is the inspiration for Lucifer's classic depiction as having horns and goats legs. The Bible certainly has no description of Lucifer at this. Pope Francis is the first Jesuit pope. The Jesuits have been tied to all kinds of historical conspiracies and have often been at odds with the Catholic Church. And yes, that is completely correct. There have been tons and tons of conspiracies concerning the Jesuits. And yes, he is the first Jesuit pope. So they've been talking about that for a very long time. Weren't the Jesuits, I believe they were also tied in with Freemasonry. Which again, we won't get into massive detail on this exact episode, but it'll all tie in at some point. Chris, what are you thinking?
Well, you just mentioned the Freemasonry. That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah. So I don't know if I'm having trouble grasping how people would react to, unless they did it really slowly, to introducing more pagan beliefs and actually like almost like pagan gods into religion, like modern Catholicism. I don't know how, especially like Bible thumpers, like how they would react to that. So, I mean, then again, the priest is kind of like, in most of their eyes, like more powerful than like government, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if usually whatever the priest says is gospel. So yeah, I'm trying to wrap my head around how that would actually go. Not exactly sure.
Yeah, well, I had a lot of other things. I guess this topic kind of brought itself up a little ahead of time. Actually, I'll still save it. I'll still save it. I had some other stuff to bring up. I don't know if you guys are bringing up some more stuff here.
Yeah,
but,
I was about to.
Yeah, go for it.
I did a little bit more digging into the United Church of God.
Mm-hmm.
There's also an article from the Evangelical Times calling them a concerning cult. So then I dug a little bit further, and it actually says the United Church of God, based in Ohio, United States, holds to doctrines that conflict with the biblical Christianity. The United Church of God is faithful to the doctrines of late Herbert W. Armstrong, the charismatic and controlling leader of the worldwide Church of God. Armstrong believed that he was an end times apostle proclaiming the soon coming kingdom of God.
Wow. And meanwhile, he's telling everybody about paganism and the Christian religion. That is a little odd. Because I was wondering, just a Catholic organization that's kind of pointing it out. Hey, guys.
It even says that the United Church of God teaches that only groups similar to their own comprise the true church, and that all other churches are satanic counterfeits.
Really?
Yep. And then it says members of the UCG are seen as a select group specially chosen by God to become first fruits, a future group of God beings and kings and priests in the earthly kingdom of God.
Woo!
And then it says the sign of being part of God's chosen people is Sabbath keeping and obedience to parts of the Mosaic law. Members must pay tithes and keep the 7 annual festivals given to ancient Israel. They also observe Old Testament laws governing unclean food and refuse to participate in the military. The United Church of God and other groups with roots in Armstrongism will not celebrate Christmas because they believe the holiday is pagan in origin.
Really? So they don't celebrate it because it's pagan in origin?
And then it says, the United Church of God beliefs that counter the Bible include a rejection of the Trinity. The Holy Spirit is the impersonal expression of God's power. A false view of Christ, Jesus and God are 2 different divine beings, and a works-based salvation. Water baptism and law keeping are required to be saved.
Chris, were you about to say something?
No, I just I was shocked by the fact that they don't celebrate Christmas.
Maybe they
It
just
almost
don't want to buy their kids gifts.
And that's true. It could be cheap, you know.
Oh, they also, in
Oh,
Armstrongism, which is what they follow, jettison some of the more eccentric teachings, such as the bans on celebrating birthdays and wearing makeup.
now we're getting kind of into like ballroom strange, not anything like Bohemian Grove. I am not. You also mentioned in I was about to say Twitch, and then I was like, wait a second, it is called Twitch. I was about to call it Twatch.
Twatch.
So in
That's what it's
Twatch,
turning into with the hot tub streams.
we have yeah. They were supposed to ban that. And then they turned it into its own category. So it's like, hey, for everyone who's going to come here and watch gaming and then be thrown off by hot tub streams, let's just put it right on the front as like, here, it's its own category now.
They should just start a whole new website called Twatch. That's a good idea.
Yep.
That's marketable.
We just came, fuck it, it's a hit, bro.
That's going to be the new OnlyFans.
We can get all the people that mistype it. It goes straight to Twatch. It's like when people miswrite like Twitchies and then hot tub stream, and it'll come up as Twatch because it's all hot tub streams.
Like twat watch, like twat.
Watch.
So
watch a twat in a hot tub.
Yo, you guys need to get that domain name right fucking now.
I'm gonna look up, see if it's taken.
I did want to bring something up, mind you. I guess I'll just throw this in because this actually came up. I don't know if you guys heard.
Wait, is it available?
No, Twatch is an actual watch. It's called the Tick Watch.
Oh god.
And it's powered by Wear OS by Google.
All right, well that's gone.
But fuck.
Something that I may as well bring up. Let me bring up a website here.
Twatch.tv is not taken though.
So remember when we had that talk about let me see right here. From what I understand, we were talking the other day about the Second Amendment, right? And about how I said the way you read it can actually dictate what you kind of pull of it. And because it has more to do with a tyrannical government than an actual personal right to have weaponry, that I would increase the claim that we should get better weaponry as opposed to give up what we have, because that's not what they were talking about back then. Governor DeSantis in Florida had just announced that
Of course, it's Florida.
they're thinking about putting together their own people's militias. And it's due to the Second Amendment. So it's funny how 2 weeks after we spoke about that, it's hit the news that DeSantis wants to do that.
Oh, they are doing that. They're going to call it the Florida Guard. It's supposed to be like a response team, like the National Guard, but only for Florida.
And it was in reference to the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
Like that reading of the Second Amendment.
It's going to be private. I was going to say private employees, but it's going to be just. God, I totally lost my train of thought because I didn't want to say private employees. But it's going to be just the average citizen, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. It's going to be a state-funded average citizen joins If we have a hurricane, they help with relief. If someone attacks Florida, they shoot them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be a civilian military.
I
All
thought
the
militias
rednecks
are
will
still
be-
protected underneath the Constitution, aren't they?
Yes, the Second Amendment.
Right.
It's literally the phraseology of the Second Amendment, which is why 2 weeks ago I had argued, hey, you know, you're saying that this advanced weaponry, quote unquote, didn't belong back then. So as far as personal protection, you know, we can't have people running around with flamethrowers and all this crazy stuff. When it was written back then, it wasn't written for the, in regards to that type of weaponry being used to protect themselves. But if you read the actual amendment, it is it's a direct statement that's saying you need to be able to protect yourself from a tyrannical government. So if you actually go by the phraseology, it would almost seem as though our weaponry should be upped, not downed. People are reading it the wrong way. And now he just brought up the same point. Maybe he saw the episode. Who knows? Maybe they got the idea from us. I strongly doubt it, but it's a funny coincidence that I made that argument. I didn't hear about that from anywhere. And all of a sudden now, DeSantis is, he proposes, I don't know why this ad keeps doing this, and this is straight from CNN, proposes a new civilian military force in Florida that he would control. Now, I understand the way they're phrasing it, like he would be the god of a military. I mean, the Second Amendment clearly states that the people should be capable of protecting themselves from a tyrannical government. And I mean, we can go back and forth about what tyrannical means and whether current actions can be put under the term tyrannical, but regardless, you know, and it's saying would reestablish a World War II era civilian military. So in World War II, that existed.
I mean, there's militias now. Like, I know that there's militias in upstate New York.
Correct.
And Pennsylvania and New Jersey. You know, there's small groups of people, and a lot of the times in the news will regard them as almost like terrorist groups. You know, especially up north, they'll regard them as that. But yeah, no, and they're based on that same idea that they are an outside group that will defend itself for that reason. So, right, you know.
Yeah, he says that, let's see, DeSantis also said this unit called the Florida State Guard would be not encumbered by the federal government. He said this force would give him the flexibility and the ability needed to respond to events in our state in the most effective way possible. So he's proposing bringing it back with a volunteer force of 200 civilians. And he's taking it straight out of the state legislature. So, yeah, I kind of found that funny because now we ran into Twatch and we were like, oh, save that. I said, it's funny. We spoke about the Second Amendment thing, and that's been a hot topic for a long time. And then the second I brought up that argument on that side of it, boom, I heard that on the news. And I said, oh, wow, like that's pretty good. So, yeah, so we got Twitch here, Twatch. And I Am Not You says they also run several Ivy League colleges and have a large influence in Georgetown, D.C. So I just want to have some clarity on that. Let me know, I Am Not You. I'm imagining you're speaking of the Jesuits because the comment right before that is the fact that Pope Francis is the first Jesuit pope. And he also says that is one of the reasons William Batty chose to use Georgetown as the location of The Exorcist. So I also have a question. So Georgetown, The Exorcist, and the Jesuits. So is that claiming that the Jesuits are evil? Or they would practice some type of shenanigans having to do with exorcisms or ceremonies? Why someone would get, I don't know, taken over by the devil in Georgetown? But until he answers that question...
Fordham is a Jesuit school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have been brought up. I've heard about it a lot, and I've heard about it in regards to secret societies, which again we will go over, not tonight necessarily, but we're headed there, because this is a very big reason they formed. Right, the Romans went after all of the pagan religions, They were burning witches, which they did all the way up until like the 1800s, right? Like they were still burning witches in Salem up until what year? Let me actually look that up.
The Romans, as they conquered lands, they would adopt their gods into their religion to help ease the transition of those people into the Roman Empire.
Mm-hmm.
But they did take a lot of Greek gods. I mean, it's just blatant one for one, like the same exact god.
Well, they're merging people's customs, right? Because when you're creating a country, or man, I'm really hitting the wall here tonight. If you're creating a whole culture, you're definitely gonna try and be a full blown. You know, it's like when we talk about being American, right? Being American has a lot to do with the culture. It doesn't necessarily. It's a Catholic country by definition, but it's more the culture. Like you believe in free speech. You believe in the right to bear arms. You believe in the amendments. And people from all over the world that don't appreciate their home country's rules come here to enjoy that culture, right? So it's a society built by a culture, which in turn can be defined as a religion according to the modern definition of religion, because religion does not mean deity. It does not have to have a supernatural presence. It could be unified by a culture. So back then, since everyone did have a fascination in the supernatural, and religions were more supernatural than they are now, I think they've modernized with how science has been gaining a lot of traction, and our technology has been growing, and our ability to build things and change things has definitely grown, especially when you start getting into like DNA type style things. So, and I think that the belief that people are their own gods has climbed. I don't know, but it's literally in the culture. Somebody also let me know. I am not you says yes. I was talking about the Jesuits. Interestingly enough, in The Exorcist, Father Karras actually questions Reagan's mother as to why she sought him out to help, because he is a Jesuit and exorcisms are a Catholic practice. I didn't realize that. I don't know if Blatty was trying to say something specifically about the secrecy of the Jesuits, but it's unusual that he made a point to add that to his story. We can actually...
I don't remember that from the movie. No.
I really wasn't prepared to start talking about specifically the Jesuits tonight. So it's funny how we just keep kind of jumping over to where we're headed rather than to continue reinforcing where we're headed.
Yeah.
So let's see.
I know I was really trying not to talk about the Freemasons before.
Well, it's unavoidable.
It really is.
And to a large extent, it's why we are talking about what we're talking about right now. You know, it's different to claim to people, hey, this is how things went, and this is why things are the way they are. And people didn't hear about it in school, and they didn't understand how strong the implications were, or didn't understand how strong the customs within the human species were. So it's easy for them to just shake the point off. But when you really nail it into people, that some of the things that are rumors now that used to be very, very important things to humanity happened for thousands of years. And to say that it's just gone now, it's almost as ridiculous as people assume it is when you tell them it's happening and they're not aware that it ever did. Does that make sense?
Right.
I partially lost my train of thought in the middle of that, so I wanted to make sure I caught myself. But yeah, because most people, they'll say, oh, that's ridiculous. There's no way. But when you show them that it almost seems more ridiculous that somebody would assume it's not still happening. Because there are people, especially if these things were practices of powerful, powerful, powerful people that ruled. They forced society to take certain things. They created societal culture. They created the directions in which countries went. They created all these things. And then they had children that not only inherited the fortune, they inherited the power. So if these people were dead in their thoughts, dead in their conviction that their practices were what were giving them that power, why would they stop doing it? Because they're retaining power. They're retaining riches. They're retaining everything that they have that they're giving down to their family. These people are going to pass along their customs. Just like every normal person. How many of us come from Catholic families and our grandparents or our parents passed down the traditions because it did well for them, right? So, if you can kind of prove that for thousands of years, these same exact bloodlines did these practices because that was what they believed gave them their power and their riches, they're not going to stop doing it.
Right. Even today, like the queen, it's considered her divine right to rule. Right. She was given that right by God.
Yes.
So, and that's and that's a tradition that's been passed down for generations and generations.
And did she say the Catholic God?
Right.
Did she say who it was? Do they walk around with crosses?
Nope. Actually, I think she does have a cross. I think if I'm not wrong, I think she has one around her neck.
Well, the cross was in fact an Egyptian symbol before the story of the crucifixion came up. The Ankh. And it wasn't Irish it wasn't Irish necessarily, like modern Irish in descent either. What people have to realize as well, because the Ankh, from our modern knowledge, comes from Ireland. Now, there's also Egyptian relics in Ireland. And I don't know how many people are actually aware of that. There's a temple in Ireland. I believe it's to Isis. I could be wrong. I'll look it up. I'll reinforce that statement. But there are Egyptian relics in Ireland. The Egyptians and the Babylonians used the Ankh, which is the crucifix. They used it in their own belief. It is a symbol that they had come up with. So you can even say that went down the line. And since we did hit the topic, I guess I should reinforce it again. We'll bring it to the news here. And this is from CBSnews.com. Vlad the Impaler. How is Prince Charles, Queen Elizabeth related to him? So right here, they apparently did an upcoming TV show, because I believe this article's from 2011. Yes, October 28, 2011. So this should be common knowledge. But anyone that I do mention this to has no idea that this is actually linked. In an upcoming TV show to promote his interest in Romania's Transylvania region, Britain's Prince Charles claims he is related to Vlad the Impaler, who gave rise to the Dracula vampire series. Apparently, so is his mother, the Queen. The heir to the British throne said genealogy shows that he is related to Vlad, giving him a stake in the future of Romania. See, when it comes to obtaining more power, they will admit these things. So he's only stating, because nobody would really be proud of that. I mean, maybe some of us jerks would be like, yeah, I'm related to Vlad the Impaler. Because you're that far detached from all the humans that guy slaughtered. Because nobody would want to say that they are immediate descendants of what happened in Germany 100 years ago, right? So the same thing. Nobody would have said earlier that they're related to him. But now that he wants a stake in the future of Romania, now that there's more power, there's more riches involved, they're admitting that they're descendants of a once very, very powerful person. The prince has long worked to conserve the forests, and he has bought a home in the Transylvania region. The link, it appears, is his great-grandmother, Mary of Teck, who was grandmother to Britain's current ruler, Queen Elizabeth II, and was queen during the reign of King George V.A. Wormington Princess, whatever that says, Mary. The woman for whom the line her Queen Mary was named was believed descended from two of Vlad's sons. Vlad the Impaler, the cruel 15th century Romanian warlord who helped inspire Bram Stoker's 1897 vampire novel Dracula, got his name from his favorite method of execution. His reputation for sadism and torture made him a legend in his own time. His victims have been estimated in the tens of thousands. So, yeah, there you go. As long as it has something to do with more power, more stupid-looking hats, more billions of dollars, they'll tell you who they're related to. Give it two more generations. Thank God this is all being taped and we could pass it down. And then the Bush will admit that they came from out, that linked to Aleister Crowley. But they won't admit it now. But you'll find out that he was. But anyways.
And also Vlad the Impaler, who relates to vampirism, and vampirism that relates to Catholicism.
Mhm.
So like when you're in church and the priest blesses the wine, you're supposed to be literally drinking the blood of Christ.
Yep.
Like literally, not wine, but literally the blood of Christ.
You're almost faking what people on the other end of it actually do. You're on the other side of the mirror.
Right. So, I mean, this is kind of on and off topic, but there's a great show. I couldn't believe they actually went this way. There's a great show on Netflix called Midnight Mass that actually goes full on that whole vampirism and Catholicism.
Really?
It's absolutely blatant, and it kind of ties everything together, but it's done in like a one season, like a one-off season show of and it's supposed to be, I guess it's supposed to be kind of fantasy, but it's pretty blatant, the connection to the two. So if anybody's interested, and it is pretty bloody, so
I am not you just mentioned most of the world's leaders have genealogical lineage going all the way back to Egyptian royalty, which again would explain why on the dollar bill, on our federal currency, right in front of us, obelisks, the symbols all across DC, that they come from that. They're the same all-seeing eye that existed back then. It's the same genealogy. It's run by blood. I've always said that Britain makes it obvious that they're run by a queen that was given that by God, right? Which I don't know how anybody listens to that bullshit, but so they have that right in your face. And there are other countries that still do that. But in the US, we have families. So we have different, like we've had the Bush, numerous generations. We have the Kennedys that are a staple in politics. You can't get rid of them either. They become senators, they become governors, they became the president. They're just locked in. The Clintons have become locked in. We're just waiting for Chelsea to get involved. People have now been talking about Trump's daughter getting involved and Eric Trump Jr. So now that family has so much money, so much influence, so much tie-in that they will continue to go forward. And you find out that all of them have links that just continually go backward. The governor of California right now is Nancy Pelosi's nephew. Look at
nepotism in government.
Look at the Cuomos, the Cuomo Bridge. Is it the Andrew Cuomo Bridge though? Cuomo didn't name it after himself, did he?
No, he named it after his father.
Right. So you had two mayors that were both Cuomos, and the younger one named a bridge after his father, Cuomo Bridge. I mean,
his brother just got terminated though.
What, from CNN?
Yeah, they just terminated him.
But that should show people as well the link between spots of power. Like people assume that somebody has to sit in a chair in a government spot being elected in order to have power and influence. When one of the biggest CNN shows was being run by the younger brother and son of two governors. So whatever they wanted to peddle to people, whatever they want to put into law, they can immediately start influencing what's on television. They can have a direct link.
I mean, that could be another show. We could just talk about the direct links between government and like who's married to who. Look at Arnold Schwarzenegger. Look at how he got his governorship, right?
Maria Shriver.
He was right.
Kennedy's.
It was a Kennedy, correct. So, and that is just absolutely rampant between media and government.
Yep.
Which to me, I mean, is should be the same separation between church and state.
Well,
Should not be intermingled.
Right, but classically, as we just spoke about, all of these ancient civilizations, the king was the equivalent of the priest that was the head of the religion. They were the living God and they were the king. So now you have to think to yourself that maybe if they see the public as going in an anti-religious direction, they create other types of belief systems, kind of, or something that would be defined as religion. Let's create a new culture. And the people in the seat will tell the people on TV where they want them to change. And then the culture starts become changed by television. Television tells a vision to people so that they start to absorb it and they start to act upon it. So instead of the leader having to go onto an altar and tell you that God's going to behead you for it, they just program it into all of television. And then all you do all day long is stare at your phone, stare at the TV. You start to take these things in. You start to act off of it. Most people these days, it kind of bothers me too. It's hard for me to have conversations with a lot of people because people only speak in cliche. And the first thing, and I know that now that I say this, people are going to do it to me constantly. I can't stand when somebody gives me a cliche. I fucking can't stand it. Unless they're trying to use the cliche to make a point out of that. Like everybody thinks that it's some kind of Broadway show. They play some type of character and they overreact to things. And they start using these terms as though it's being witty. But there's no wit involved in repeating a cliche that's been around for hundreds of years. There's no wit involved in just copying somebody else or what you've been told to do or told to act like. Am I wrong or right?
I mean, that's true. I mean, you don't have to follow the cliche.
Of course it's
Make
true.
up your own
It is
mind.
what it is. You get what I'm saying?
Oh, I get it.
Did I not make my point? Mundane, what are you doing?
I've been researching what y'all have been talking about.
Well, why don't you share some of that research with the people that are watching? I can give you plenty to look up during the week.
Yeah, that'd be great. Well, one of the things I looked up because you were mentioning the thing about the witches in Salem, that happened between 1692 and 1693, and when the accusations actually came out and 150 people were arrested. But then I was kind of surprised because I haven't actually ever looked into that what they said the witches were executed were never actually burnt at the stake. They were hung.
Yeah, monks are hung.
Because
I've never
burning
actually
them
looked into
would have
it.
been their own ceremony.
Right.
That's why.
True. That's true.
And then also you mentioned the Temple of Isis in Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be Huntington Castle. There's a Temple of Isis in the dungeon.
So it came
below
up.
Huntington Castle. That was the Temple of Isis was underneath Huntington Castle in the dungeons or basement, as they like to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Was built in 1976 is when it became the foundation center for the fellowship.
Wow. But the Temple of Isis predates all of that, right? Like it was built on top and they didn't realize it? Or they made it there? Because I heard that there was an Egyptian ship found there too, in Ireland. There were a few things Egyptian.
This one just says the basement previously housed the dungeon, strong room, and old kitchen and well of St. Bridget, but in 1976 it became the foundation center for the fellowship.
For the fellows, that's funny. Why not just repopulate something like that? So I wanted to also bring up here. I had a bunch of links. We'll go over them now. Just really reinforcing this. Okay. So Mount, I don't know how the hell to say that. Mount Lycaon in Greece. So, or ancient Greece. Mount Lycaon is a mountain in Arcadia, Greece. It has two peaks to the north and to the south where the altar of Zeus is located, right? Now, the reason I wanted to bring this up is that I'll read this next one. The northern peak is higher, 1,421 meters, than the south, 1,382 meters. It was sacred to Zeus, Lycaos, who was said to have been born and brought up on it and was the home of Pelasgus and his son Lycaon. That almost sounds like lichen, like werewolf, who were said to have founded the ritual of Zeus practiced on its summit. This seems to have involved a human sacrifice and a feast in which the man who received the portion of a human victim was changed to a wolf, as lichen had been after sacrificing a child. Okay, so this is actually tying in the werewolf literally by name. Lichen is the original thing for a werewolf, but they became a wolf by eating part of a sacrifice, eating part of the victim. And this was the altar of Zeus. The altar of Zeus consists of a great mound of ashes with a retaining wall. It was said that no shadows fell within the precincts and that any who entered it died within the year. The sanctuary of Zeus played host to athletic games held every 4 years, the Lycaea. However you say that. I'm probably saying it incorrectly. If somebody can fix that. Lycaean. So a lot of people, not only do they not teach you that Greek mythology was legit religion, maybe I'm wrong, but I was never aware that Greek mythology itself was also linked to human sacrifice. I know that a lot of the gods were linked afterward, but they never necessarily tie all of this stuff together for people. They just kind of throw the information out there and you study it if you want. If you don't, you don't. So the mountain and Zeus were both connected to human sacrifice. That was one thing.
Amazing how much human sacrifice carries throughout history and religion all over the world.
It's everywhere. Here's another news article here. Skeletal remains confirm ancient Greeks engaged in human sacrifice. So, and this has to do with that mountain. These are bones found on the mountain where animal offerings to Zeus were also made, but some are urging caution over how to interpret the discovery. Of course, because if you're to assume that all of these cultures sacrificed, then you're assuming that all of humanity used to practice this on a somewhat regular basis. And I Am Not You had just said on Twitch, God asked Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac, which that is correct as well. We got a quiet day today, actually. I'm seeing the numbers, and the numbers are actually really good, but maybe everybody's listening. I don't know. If anybody's got any comments or any questions, please, by all means, jump in. Thank you, I Am Not You, for really bringing a lot of information to us. What were you going to say, Chris?
I think that was mundane.
Yes, that was me.
What, I Am Not You?
No, what?
No, that's not mundane.
No, me. It me.
It still didn't switch over. There you go.
I obviously I can't see, but I'm guessing that picture are the remains that they found on the mountain.
Yeah, it looks like animal remains, right?
Humans
but
are
one thing
animals,
is
correct?
the ritual that Zeus's 2 sons went through required a baby to be sacrificed. Those remains look a little large to be a baby.
Well, it says a teenager. It says the upper part of the teenager's skull was missing, while the body was laid among 2 lines of stones on an east-west axis, with stone slabs covering the pelvis. Wow. Somebody was held down by fucking stone slabs. Yeah, and notice that it says skeletal remains confirm ancient Greeks engaged in human sacrifice, but right under it, it says bones found on Mount Lycaon where animal offerings to Zeus were also made. So it's almost as if they're trying to claim, oh, they used to just sacrifice animals. But, you know, and urging caution over how to interpret it. But there's a person that was found, bones, with stone slabs covering the pelvis. And this is legit bone. So this dates back quite a bit. The discovery of a 3,000-year-old skeleton in Greece has excited archaeologists who believe that the finding may confirm one of the darkest legends of antiquity. Greek's Culture Ministry announced on Wednesday that the Greek-American team of researchers had discovered the skeleton of a creature on the side of a teenager on the side of Mount Lycaon, known to be the site of animal sacrifices to Zeus. Much later, sources talk about human sacrifices taking place. And then all this will be studied. So, yeah. I don't think they came to a conclusion in this article. Obviously, it's speaking in future terms. Whether it's a sacrifice or not, this is a sacrificial altar. So it's not a place where you would bury an individual. It's not a cemetery. So
yeah, they also state that anybody who enters the altar dies within a year.
Right. And then they go on to say it's funny how things seem to come full circle all the time in some strange way. On the one hand, there's this picture of Greece as the cradle of civilization, the birthplace of democracy, of philosophy, of rational thinking. But on the other hand, we have these cruel, cruel myths. Though I am not you just said the Lord spoke to Moses saying, say to the people of Israel, any one of the people of Israel are of the strangers who sojourn in Israel, who gives any of his children to Moloch, shall surely be put to death. The people of the land shall stone him with stones. There's your buddy Moloch again. So, and yes, I am not you. We do have that coming up momentarily. But yeah, so this is with Greece. We'll jump to another one. You have anything to add, Mundane Chris?
No.
No, I do not.
But it's just, like I said, it's just really interesting how human sacrifice just plays such a big part, and especially children. It's primarily children.
What a cruel, cruel myth.
Well,
Yeah.
Because you have to think that would be the ultimate form of sacrificing.
Right. And it's also, I guess they also go by like innocence.
Correct.
Pure, unadulterated blood.
Sure. I mean, we good people and people who are legitimately religious and believe in God and believe in the afterlife, they will actually say we should have a death penalty. Because if you have serial killers, there's no way to safely keep them embedded in a society. It's not even safe to let them out of the society so they can come back and do it again.
Right. And you're just wasting taxpayer dollars. Let's be real.
And this is why we have several definitions for murder, right? Because some of it is not murder per se. You know, there is an ethical kind of discussion to be had. And also when you consider mercy killings, Kevorkian was a very, very big ethical conversation. If somebody is slowly dying already, and if they don't want to go through it, what's the sense?
Well, I'm slowly dying right now, and I don't want to go through it. Can someone put me out of my misery?
Yeah, definitely, bro. Call me tomorrow.
Be there in a minute.
And I am not you also said children are new life. So symbolically, I guess it's trading a new life for you to receive a new life. But yeah, we're going to just keep trucking here. So I have another article here for Wikipedia. So it's from a bog body. A bog body is a human cadaver that has been naturally mummified in a peat bog. So a bog or bogland is a wetland that accumulates peat,
Celtic.
a deposit of dead plant material, often mosses, often moss, different mosses, and in a majority of cases, sphagnum moss. I don't know what the hell that is. It is one of the four main types of wetlands. Other names for bogs are mire, mosses, quagmire. I know that term. Alkaline mires are called fens. I don't know. We're going too far into that. But such bodies, sometimes known as bog people, are both geographically and chronologically widespread, having been dated to between 8000 BC and the Second World War. The unifying factor of the bog bodies is that they have been found in peat and are partially preserved. Now, the reason I wanted to bring this up is that these are the bodies that they were talking about in the special that we watched last week, the bog bodies, that they were all found to have had a very, very violent death. So right here, some iron. Oh, first, so date to the Iron Age and have been found in, so you're talking about Northwest Europe, Denmark, Germany, the Netherlands, the UK, Sweden, Poland, Ireland. Such Iron Age bog bodies typically show a number of similarities, such as violent deaths and lack of clothing, which has led archaeologists to believe that they were killed and deposited in the bogs as part of a widespread cultural tradition of human sacrifice or executed as criminals. So let me repeat that. Has led archaeologists to believe they were killed and deposited in the bogs as part of a widespread cultural tradition of human sacrifice. Speaking of which, we can jump into here. And let's see if it brings up anything. It says human sacrifice was practiced in many human societies beginning in prehistoric times. By the Iron Age, first millennium BC, with the associated developments in religion, the actual age, human sacrifice was becoming less common throughout Africa, Europe, and Asia, and came to be looked down upon as barbaric and during classical antiquity. In the Americas, however, human sacrifice continued to be practiced by some to varying degrees until the European colonization of the Americas. Today, human sacrifice has become extremely rare. Now, that's a claim from Wikipedia that has become extremely rare. We do not know that. But, I mean, it's pretty much stating it was worldwide. Let's see, human killer.
Right. So right, you have tales. You have tales again from Africa, from Egypt, which is in Africa, all over Europe, the Central America, South America, North America. It seems like that all the customs that was a part of daily life.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting. It's I know it's a big topic of future conversation.
Absolutely. It's been practiced everywhere by everybody. I did have an article the other day about something they found in Italy, but for some reason I'm not finding it again. So, and speaking of what we were told by I Am Not You, I had brought up the binding of Isaac, which was in the Bible itself. So it's Hebrew is the story in the Hebrew Bible found in Genesis 22. It's a biblical narrative that tells God tells Abraham to sacrifice his son, Isaac, or Moriah. Abraham begins to comply with a message from God when a messenger from God interrupts him. Abraham then sees a ram and sacrifices that instead. So even in the Holy Bible, they were sacrificing to this God. He just chose a ram instead. But so let's see.
It's like God goes. I don't know if you saw a therapist between the Old Testament and the New Testament, because like he totally changed. In the Old Testament, God was like very angry and kind of a jerk, and then in the New Testament, he's kind of like a teddy bear.
He's
So
just a
it's,
cool dude that loves you all.
Maybe he just smoked a lot of pot between the two, and
But as I've said, it's a designer religion. That's what it almost feels like. It just it'll say what it needs to gain traction at the time that it is. So let me take another look in here. Is there anything you guys want to look up in the meantime while I'm pulling up some new sources?
I've been enjoying your sexy voice as you've been reading to me. I'm gonna record this and then play to go to sleep at night.
Oh, hell yeah, man.
Lou reads the news.
So I want to bring up one in particular. I had mentioned to I Am Not You that it was coming. So here is one that continually comes up that he's not taught in Greek mythology. He's not brought up many times in academia. They don't tend to really talk about him all that much. He was mentioned maybe once or twice in the Bible in a very quick passage. Now, usually when you think of like an evil god, whether it's Satan or whether it's the numerous names of Satan, you think of Satan, you think of Lucifer, you think of Baal. Some people understand Pan as being kind of a nod to Satan, as was mentioned by I Am Not You earlier, that Pan had the goat legs and the devil horns, though Pan was not necessarily depicted the way Catholics depict Lucifer, as extreme and evil. But in Greek mythology, when you look at Pan, he was kind of evil. And a lot of new horror movies have kind of been pushing that. So, I mean, the devil has 1,000 names. But you very, very rarely hear about Moloch, okay? I mean, maybe if you read Hillary Clinton's emails, you would have heard about Moloch. But, so we'll go right into this. So Moloch, he was a deity, and it actually says ancient Greek. I think that's just the name. Let me see here. So Moloch is a name of a term which appears in the Hebrew Bible several times, primarily in the book of Leviticus. The Bible strongly condemns practices which are associated with Moloch, practices which appear to have included child sacrifice. Traditionally, Moloch has been understood as referring to a Canaanite god. However, since 1935, scholars have debated whether or not the term refers to a type of sacrifice on the basis of a similar term, also spelled MLK, which means sacrifice in the Punic language. The second position has grown increasingly popular. Of course it has, right? No one's ever heard of this guy, although everybody's heard of this guy. It never existed, although it exists everywhere, apparently. But it remains contested. Among proponents of this second position, controversy continues as to whether the sacrifices were offered to Yahweh or another deity, and whether they were a native Israelite religious custom or a Phoenician import. So this was very highly practiced with the Phoenicians, mainly, and that was, I think that was tied to the article I had concerning Italy, because it was located across the Mediterranean. There was actually a path from the Sicilian Islands, I believe, to an area that the Sicilians were known, I mean, not the Sicilians, the Phoenicians were known to have had done sacrifices in the name of Moloch, however you're going to pronounce it, Moloch. So let's see how much further we go here. Since the medieval pyramid, Moloch has been portrayed as a bull-headed idol with outstretched hands over a fire. This depiction takes the brief mentions of Moloch in the Bible and combines them with various sources, including ancient accounts of Carthaginian child sacrifice and the legend of the Minotaur. So let's see if we can kind of go into this. So, I mean, to sum it up, I'll take some more out of this, but to sum it up, this was very similar to Burning Man. So Moloch, in some depictions, was a giant head with a mouth open, and people would take the child, they'd climb the altar, offer the child from the altar, and place it in the mouth of Moloch, which would now tumble down into a style of Burning Man. And then everybody would just cook like an oven in there. So you'd be dumping it. Some things I see is the mouth. Other things are straight into the stomach. What were you going to say?
Sound like I was going to say it would sound like the bull was like yelling or making horrible sounds, but it's the
people burning.
They're cooking in there, right?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I think you're going to be hearing a lot of screaming. Every time I see an idol of it, it's large and the mouth is open.
Right.
So
right. Did they mention the Minoan people, right? How they worshipped the half man, half
bull.
Half bull. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So another thing that represents Moloch, it's the owl. So he's also referenced as the owl god. So when you see owls or anybody praying to the owl or statues of an owl, like a deity owl, is generally Moloch. So, for example, Bohemian Grove. So we'll keep going. What was that?
I said that's exactly what I was thinking. I knew that's where we were going.
So here's Moloch as a deity. Before 1935, all scholars held that Moloch was a pagan deity. So very quickly, let's see what he has here. I am not, you said, in the less than stellar Greek mythology movie Immortals, King Hyperion, played by Mickey Rourke, would throw people into a large metal golden bull and burn them in it. So it says, before 1935, all scholars held that Moloch was a pagan deity to whom child sacrifice was offered at the Jerusalem Tophet. The medieval rabbinical tradition understood Moloch as closely related to other similarly named deities mentioned in the Bible, such as Milcom, Adrammelech, and Anamelech. The medieval rabbinical tradition was connected to Moloch to reports of ancient Phoenician and Carthaginian child sacrifice. Both of these rabbinical ideas were taken over by early modern scholarship. Some modern scholars have proposed that Moloch may be the same god as Milcom, Adid Milki, or an epithet for Baal. See? So now people are tying it together with Baal, but it's not scripturally tied to that. So, to me, Moloch seems to be one of the only bad gods that isn't necessarily spoken about in Greek mythology and Roman mythology. In whenever they make these movies, Hollywood does these like, oh, there's a cult and it's praying to this. Nobody ever really brings this guy up. Like, I don't think many people are even aware of this. Like, this sounds to me like it was a pretty major guy. You look like you in thought.
Even today, it's pretty it's relative. So he's kind of been behind the scenes, this god.
Incredibly. So right here, as a Moloch as a form of sacrifice, it even says, among scholars who deny the existence of a deity Moloch, debate remains as to whether the Israelite MLK sacrifices were offered to Yahweh or another deity. Armin Lange suggests that the binding of Isaac represents an MLK sacrifice to Yahweh in which the child is finally substituted with a sheep, noting that Isaac was meant to be a burnt offering. The opinion is shared by, Stravkopolu, who also points to the sacrifice of Jephthah, of his daughter, as a burnt offering. Frendo, while he argues that Moloch refers to a god, accepts Stravkopolus, man, this is like the Olympics of pronouncing names, argument that the sacrifices in the Tophet were originally to Yahweh. So the people, all of these scholars just keep fighting back and forth as to whether this guy even existed. But the funny thing is, there are, in fact, things that exist. Like, there are people who know who this guy was without any type of question. As social or political allegory. Let's see here. There's some more in here. So it's a historical novel about Carthage, and they brought up, including the god Moloch, in which the Carthaginians offered children. As social or political allegory, Moloch is sometimes used to indicate something that demands immense sacrifice or subservience. Karl Marx, just to remind people, Karl Heinrich Marx, he was a German philosopher, critic of political economy, economist, historian, sociologist, political theorist, journalist, and socialist revolutionary. He was born in Trier, Germany. Marx studied law and philosophy at the universities of Bonn and Berlin. So he referred to money as a Moloch in capital and in Grundis, if that's the way you say it. So Karl Marx knew who Moloch was. I don't think I'm that surprised by that.
Not at all. I'm not surprised, actually.
A rhetorical connection between abortion and the child sacrifice to Moloch has been drawn by anti-abortion movements since the late 19th century. That seems to be... It seems to be kind of valid. Hey, Mundane, what are you thinking here?
Yeah, thinking's hard to do. I'm just trying to take it all in.
What, are you just trying to find babies to sacrifice?
Oh, yeah, all the babies.
You want the riches and the power, right?
That's right.
Karl Marx said it. He knew who Moloch was.
He was probably sacrificing babies.
His teaching seemed to be followed quite heavily by people who seem to like sacrificing babies too. So I Am Not You says on Twatch, the Tower of Babel story is a metaphor for what you're reading right now and the confusion of names and links to various deities. So many different names and slight variations to the practices and beliefs make it near impossible to put the pieces together and realize all ancient and near modern cultures. These practices are now hidden in our times but still take place. Bohemian Grove are practicing the same religion and will continue to do so. So he pretty much ruined my episode. Thank you, I Am Not You, for ruining this masterpiece. No, but that is the direction we're trying to go in. We're trying to solidify this point so that people understand that some of the things we're going to be getting into in some of the future episodes are not a far reach. They're not a far reach whatsoever. They're in fact a really close reach, and in some ways a logical reach. Also considering the fact that a lot of people these days are becoming implicated in a lot of things that sound very similar to this, and they're becoming implicated by accident. Nobody's just standing up and accusing with absolutely no evidence. There is in fact evidence. There are in fact links, and I think that it's a extremely logical reach to assume that some of this stuff actually has a link. So let's see. I'm going to look at a couple of other things here. So Moloch is used to describe a particularly savage brand of religion. And I am not you also says, you need to let me in on the show format so I don't ruin your grand reveal next time. I will. I'll let you know. So Chris, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I kind of missed what I am not you had said.
Oh, I mean, he pretty much linked everything. The Tower of Babel. He brought up the Tower of Babel story, which we've spoken about. We hit upon that, I think, in last episode. Not necessarily the Tower of Babel story, but the concept that changing the language immediately destroys people's capability of communicating. You could both be saying the same thing, but using different terminologies. And even people who use a traditional definition to a word compared to somebody who uses a modern definition might be talking two totally different points by saying the same thing. So the communication is jumbled. Therefore, a lot of things, people don't reach certain points because they don't understand certain things. The links aren't there. The ties are difficult to make because the terminologies are all thrown off. The same remark I made earlier about if I have a cat and I start calling it a dog and somebody asks me about my cat and I say, but I don't have a cat, I have a dog. Right there, we've just thrown things out the window and apparently nobody's lying.
Right. It's perception.
So he also says, take a look at that picture of Moloch statue on the wiki page you're looking at right now. Does it look oddly familiar? So if you're speaking of this one, so this is linked with the next article I was about to bring up. So this guy is located in Italy, this statue. He was also from a movie, by the way. So this statue was in a movie from, I think, the 1960s. 1955. That's a poem. There was a movie made about that, but I don't know what he's referring to. I'm going to bring up another thing as well. Let me switch this over so that I can look something up real quick and I can hit you guys with something good, because that's what we're about, quality. So of course it's upright. The mouth is up. The sacrifice goes into the mouth. You could kind of look at it as, let's see here.
You want to hear something weird in the meantime?
So just very quickly, I'll just throw this out there.
Okay.
Kind of looks like that.
I thought that's
so
where
see the eyes,
going.
See the face, see the mouth. So this was something that recently happened, recently took place. This was the entrance. So the sacrifice would go through the mouth into the icon or whatever it is. And there they would be. I guess there's a lot of fire here. Looks pretty good. There were a lot of accidents that happened at that concert. A lot of strange stuff. But now if you to look at this one. Now, I don't know if that picture has been modified. I see a handful of them that look like that. I'm not sure. I wasn't there. I'm just going on what I see from the internet. But that gold, that color of gold, looks very similar. And I'll just bring this up ahead of time. We're going to talk about that particular statue that was in the picture. What were you saying, Monday?
So something weird. I was looking at, looking into the same stuff that you were looking into with Moloch. And I noticed on one of the pages that there was a picture of Moloch that had a sigil on his chest, sort of like the one in the photo here, where it's like the little ring at the bottom and it goes up to the eye.
You looked
Not
at the chat.
No, I didn't. Not quite matching that. So I looked at that sigil. So then I did a little bit of research into that because I have one that very, very closely resembles that right here on the back of my hand.
Mm-hmm. Oh, nice. What are you doing with that? What does that mean?
And so
Do we
that
need to
sigil
burn
has
you?
a word that sigil has a word connected to it, which would be Bellany.
Okay.
Well, Bellany is the meaning of Bellany, or the way that you look into it. It's used for an evocation of magic, to bring something forth. And the exact thing that is stating is, show and discover unto us all treasure that thou knowest of, or that is in thy keeping, and deliver it unto us quietly.
That's pretty cool.
And that sigil's just on his chest and also on the back of my hand, apparently.
Well, that's also the all-seeing eye. That's also on your dollar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and as pointed out again from I Am Not You, says you're looking at right now, there's the all-seeing eye right in the middle of the sun sign on its chest. Some symbols on both hand palms. Does it look oddly fish-like to you? And I think he had also pointed out that Jesus was the Pisces. So it kind of looks like a fish. It's got the sun on the hands. It's got the eye, the all-seeing eye, which we still have. And it's got the third eye as well.
I'm going to say that has the third eye up there.
So now if anybody's wondering, this statue was on display at the Roman Colosseum. And it's the pagan deity Moloch. And it was in Italy. So let's see. Call it an odd juxtaposition to the bloody pagan practices of two warring cities, ancient Rome and its ancient medieval rival Carthage. As I mentioned, the Phoenicians and a lot of them that were right over from Sicily. From now through March 22nd to 2020, as part of an exhibit celebrating the city of Carthage. I don't know why that would be a celebration. A giant statue of Moloch, the god of the ancient Canaanites and Carthaginians, will greet visitors at the entrance of the Roman Colosseum. And it says right here, Moloch is the pagan god who required his devotees to toss their children into his fiery belly as an act of worship. The location of the display is particularly worth noting, since the Roman Colosseum is where many early Christians were slaughtered at the hands of lunatic dictators, fearful of a faith they could not stop. So it's very funny how, like, at a famous spot that they claim they know the history to, in which a lot of people died, it was almost when they were talking about putting the mosque at the 9/11 memorial. You remember that one, Chris?
Mhm.
It's almost as if they're trying to put the winner right on top of the place, almost like it's a, it's a smack in the face, kind of. Previously, the Catholic Church had made the Colosseum a sacred site to honor these first Christian martyred for their faith, even placing stations of the cross there for the faithful to contemplate their sacrifice. Now it's guarded by the pagan god Moloch, whose demand for child sacrifice has been compared to the modern epidemic of abortion, and the faithful are greeted with a statue honoring a pagan deity whose murderous spirit still seeks to kill children. And as this one here, Elizabeth Lev says, a giant statue of Moloch greets visitors to the Colosseum Carthage exhibit. Of course, a god of death reigns in the arena, but the exculpatory didactic, I don't know those words, claims he didn't exist. Sacrifice of infants claims it didn't exist. You see this? And we're talking about how it's really hard to find stuff about this guy, but obviously some people know a lot about him. There are people that know a lot about him, but most people try and claim that it didn't happen, it didn't exist. And for some reason, we don't have many other characters that are this apparent around a lot of ancient religions, and this kind of what's the term? There aren't many that is present while still being in question of existing. See, so let's say you saw somebody tomorrow with this thing in the backyard and you see him toss a baby right in. And you're like, hey, that's satanic worship. You're a Satanist. That person can simply turn around and say, no, I don't believe in Satan. We could say it's a water slide too. But he could say, I don't believe in Satan. And guess what? He's not lying. He's not lying. He's not a Satanist. He's not satanic.
It's funny how it's been so prevalent in so many religions, and even up until now. And it seems like one of the deities to do that, to be around for so long, and like invade so many different religions.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting.
I mean, this goes back to the Babylonians. If you keep going back, I mean, this one keeps coming back up, no matter what. And a lot of scholars will argue that it didn't exist. But obviously, a lot of people know a lot about this guy. And they're still putting statues up. This was on display until March of 2020, of last year. And I don't know if it's still up or not. And we've had a lot of that this last few years, right? Replacing idols with the alternative. We've had that a lot. We've had a lot of monument removal of certain people, removal of certain statues. We seem to keep finding the 180 of things and replacing. So it's almost as if saying that at the end of the day, the one that was up there lost. And now we have a new. So, and apparently it being outside of the Colosseum, the Vatican did not fight it. And now we're going to have another thing here. So it says, okay, so the film, he was used in a 1914 Italian silent film called Camarilla. In the film, the idol of Moloch, set up in a Carthaginian temple, has a giant bronze furnace in his chest into which hundreds of children are thrown. Camarilla, the heroine of the film, is threatened with this fiery fate. Ancient Greek historians record that burning children alive as an offering was a common practice in Carthage. The Carthaginians called the deity Baal and Cronus, or Saturn, the Roman god who, according to myth, ate his own children lest they supplant him. So it was their belief that you'd sacrifice your children.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. It's very, very present. Very present in a lot of things. And I also want to point out, too, I am not you said he's suggesting a tie with the fish like to a Dagon. 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 I can look him up in a minute.
That out earlier, didn't we?
It came up. Yeah. I know we saw it. And he said like Shiva at the Large Hadron Collider. Yeah, if you guys weren't aware, right outside the Large Hadron Collider is a is literally a big statue of Shiva, like right outside of it. What it has to do with that, I don't know. And then he also mentions Kronos, as we discussed in your last show, was killed by Zeus for eating Zeus's siblings. Yeah, so I mean this thing just keeps coming up and keeps coming up and keeps coming up. And he's also represented by the owl, which, funny enough, it was known that he was, but it just, I couldn't find the information again, but it used to be everywhere. And here, so everybody's got to understand that we're going to be reading this. This is a blog that I had sent to Chris earlier today. And it's about abortion. And I personally don't want to get into the politics of abortion, what I think about it or what side I fall on. I am not going to ask you guys that question. Anybody in the comments, you don't have to give your opinion on it. This isn't a political discussion. It's more a link to where society's going and where certain things are tying into certain things. You get what I'm saying there, Mundane the Mouth?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Yeah, you don't have to give your opinion, but it's just a viewpoint, and it's a viewpoint that you'd kind of expect from this, right? So I'm going to bring up this article really quick. This is from the Zion Lutheran Church. Okay. Now, the only reason I'm going to read this is because it does make a good point, and it's something that should definitely be considered, at least from the angle by which a lot of people are pushing the current culture towards and knowing what the ancient culture used to be. Right? So understand that this was a common practice. This is something that happened a lot. So they wrote, our modern Moloch, child sacrifice in the 21st century. Okay? This paragraph is going to be difficult to read. The ones following it should be more difficult. The picture on the right depicts a metal statue of the pagan god Moloch. It is being heated with fire as a priest places a baby into its searing hands. He and the gathered worshippers will watch this baby burn to death, all in an attempt to earn their god's favor. This was a part of ancient pagan worship. Repeatedly in Scripture, God condemned this practice. You shall not give any of your children to offer them to Moloch, as so profane the name of your God, I am the Lord. Tragically, Solomon erected a high place in Jerusalem to this god to placate his foreign wives. Oh, wow. We moderns like to believe our culture enlightened and far removed from these detestable, morally depraved ancient practices. The truth, however, may reveal otherwise. Consider a full-page advertisement featured in June in the New York Times. It was published in response to a number of recently passed pro-life laws. Under the misleading title, Don't Ban Equality, it read in part, it's time for companies to stand up for reproductive health care. Restricting access to comprehensive reproductive care, including abortion, threatens the health, independence, and economic stability of our employees and customers. Simply put, it goes against our values and it is bad for business. Put it a bit more succulently, restricting abortion is bad for business. Or phrased a bit more honestly, abortion is good for business. In other words, abortion must be preserved for the sake of business. How does that sit with you? So, yeah, he's kind of saying at the rate that it's being pushed and the way the law is being changed towards it and the way it's kind of like being culturally, I'm trying to figure out a way to say this because this is a very, very hot topic on people, you know, very understood, right? I'm not saying I don't understand. So he says to be as charitable as possible, the ad sponsors were trying to address this underlying reality. Pregnancy and babies unequally affect women's professional careers. This cannot be denied, but is abortion the answer? And yes, it does affect their careers, blatantly. So I'm going to put this article into the comments in case anybody's interested in reading this. I don't know, guys, do you guys want me to read through this or?
I don't think it's really necessary to read through the whole thing. Yeah, I mean, um, it's really hard not to get political or state your opinion, but yeah, no, it just seems like a big narrative today is to push abortions like in modern day society. You know, sure there are reasons for abortion, you know, uh, the woman's right to choose. I get that, and you know, if there's defects that could threaten the life of the woman, sure, you know, I get that, but you know, it just seems like it's more of a topic than it should be. I don't know. I feel like it's pushed way too hard in common society.
Well, I'll read the next paragraph because here's where he really makes his point. In other words, for women to participate equally in the professional business world, abortion must be preserved. Ask yourself, what is the underlying assumption here? What is being held up as the most important thing? The thing before which everything else should be sacrificed? A person's career. So the assumption is nothing should stand in the way of a person's career. It is the highest good. Do you believe this? Are our careers the highest point? Isn't this the definition of a god? The thing before which everything else should be submitted and sacrificed. Are our careers God? You can see now why abortion is so vigorously defended. It protects the God called career, business, personal advancement. Both the Times advertisement and the Kennedy decision make this point. Abortion must be preserved for the sake of our careers. Children must be sacrificed before the God career. And the only reason I read this article is because I've noticed a gigantic trend in our society the last few years, outside of abortion, that it's pushing people to not stay in a family setting. They've been kind of pushing the anti-family. They don't push people to stay together, raise the children. There's been a gigantic push into narcissism. Do what makes you feel happy. You be you every moment. There's never any type of sacrifice for the good of a family or the good things that come out of family, or don't leave your family because you disagree about the coronavirus. Like, there is none of that. There's been the major push. If you disagree with coronavirus, you should disavow your family. If you disagree with things involving politics and Trump, you should disavow your family. If you're not happy with the other person, whether you have children or not, you should just leave the family. They glorify single mothers. They glorify people either raising their child single or pro-choice. And again, I'm keeping my opinion out of it, but I do believe from an ethical standpoint, there is a conversation to be had about having this type of point in a society and what it does to the society and what are the implications of it.
Well, I don't know about all that, but
Oh, I can show you.
I do believe that part of this article is complete bullshit, because if you did care about your job that much, if your job was your God, you would take preventative measures for them getting pregnant. So, like, we're not living in the 1800s or early 1900s. You can either bag it, you could, if you have like a dirty stay out, whatever, you could go and get the morning after pill. It costs $50. You can get it from any pharmacy. If you just, if you don't give two fucks about having kids and you just want to fuck freely, I mean, you could get your tubes tied. You could make sure the dude pulls out. I mean, there's a ton of preventative measures, or you could just not fuck at all. But no one's telling anybody to do that. I'm just saying. To say that abortion is the only way for women to be successful in life is complete and utter bullshit. So,
What are you thinking, Mundane?
I mean, I'm really enjoying watching Chris like tiptoe through the minefield trying to not get political about this.
No, look, I mean, I am not. I'll state at least this: I'm not for banning it. There's a necessary purpose to having the procedure in society. So
you're not for banning it; you're for regulating it.
Man, I said I wouldn't get into this. All I'm saying is I'm not on either sides of this coin. I don't see this as a political thing. I'm bringing this up as an actual moral question. And in reference to Chris, I Am Not You had just mentioned in Twatch, the brainwashing against the family unit and the importance of a father in the family setting started in the late 80s with the obvious shift of TV shows depicting strong father figures into buffoons that were always refuted by their smarter, better-looking wife and kids. Al Bundy being a major example. And most shows we can bring up at this point do depict, and that's if the show is even based around having a family unit. I understand the positive thinking, right? There are people that are unfortunately single parents, and single parents should not be frowned upon. I'm not on either side of that fence either. But the glorification of the opposite shouldn't necessarily be something that's propelled forward. A society, I believe, is made super strong by families, by multiple families, especially when the mafia takes over your state. Family unit is very important to the human species and incredibly important to the survival. And every culture that has gotten to great, great power has used the family structure the growing of that family, and a more, I'm not saying this from the political realm, but it's true, a more conservative society to propel itself to a high status. Societies before collapse have always come to where we are now. So I think there's a lot to be had in that, you know. I'm not jumping on either side of the fence here. I'm not trying to be a fence sitter. It's up to everybody's individual decisions, and people are in certain situations, sometimes for the better. With that being said, to glorify certain things in a society and to push that is what should happen. I feel like we're down a very, very slippery slope. And, you know, people wonder, we always have that conversation when we talk about Bohemian Grove and we talk about the elites and a lot of that conspiratorial thing that they're always involved in. But people say, well, how could they be doing something like that? And how this, how that? Did you notice that during the COVID shutdowns, the only thing that they fought to keep open the entire time, even though people were missing cancer surgeries, major surgery, a lot of people died for things that were not the coronavirus because surgeons were not operating, but Planned Parenthood stayed open. We have a really, really, really big push to keep this as available as humanly possible. And almost as if they tell you, hey, look, if it's not good for your career, just get rid of the kid. I'll leave it on this statue of Moloch for a moment so that you guys can sit on that.
You could also tie the whole trying to push that and push the glorification of single parents, or the fact that, you know, that is an option, it's not good for your career, get rid of them, and the whole pushing to get rid of family units or anti-family, as you said, because just as you said that a family unit is stronger, you break up as many of those family units as possible, you have a weaker population to then push around as sheep.
Yes. I think it's incredibly interlocked. And I think that politicians know that. And I think people in power know that. And I think, I mean, look at people in power. To have any influence over society where you're telling people openly, you know, you should do what feels good to you. Yeah, you don't like that person, even though you got 3 kids, you leave them. Break up the family. Do what they have to do. But at the end of the day, they rule by blood. They don't separate often. Their children not only gain their wealth, they gain their knowledge, they gain their power, they gain their strength, they gain their stature. They are 1,000% for family, regardless of the despicable things that might come out in some of their kids' journals and other stuff that tend to leak, and you realize how despicable some of these people really are. They still stay as a family unit. They still function as a family unit, regardless of the Bill Clinton scandal. Hillary Clinton never left, did she? She almost became president. She stayed in power.
That gravy chain.
There is strength in a family unit. There's strength in numbers. I mean, these cliche lines, as stupid and cliche as they are, they're true. And that's why they've been spoken for so many years, because they're true. Somebody alone and weak, being alone does not mean you're necessarily going to fail, but it's a lot harder to fail when you have a giant family that is ready to take you in, house you, get you ready for the next thing, set you up, bail you out of things, guide you. If you're morally being thrown off the horse or you're starting to act crazy, they keep you in check. There's a purpose to a family. There's a gigantic purpose to a family. There's a necessity for a family. I mean, that's my belief.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to refute that. It's obvious.
I mean, I may not, you guys know me very well. I may not believe in it in a religious context, but obviously I believe it in my practice, right? You know what I'm referring to, Chris. Because I get thrown against the wall for that all the time. But the funny part of it is, I've held on to it longer and better than everyone else over the years that have mocked me. Because again, I believe that it is advantageous for everybody involved. If it's something that can be kept together, it should at a certain point. I'm not telling people that if you date somebody when you're 17, oh, you dated somebody, you got to stay together because family. No, you don't have a family. But once children become involved, once that topic becomes involved, it's much better for the good of everybody in the situation, generally, to stay together. And I'm talking as a large generalization, a large average. I'm not talking about if people are in an abusive relationship. Things like that, it should split, yes. But in the larger context, if you're trying to run a society and you're talking about millions and millions and millions of people, more often than not, people get divorced because they get bored of each other. The flair is gone.
I think a lot of people are getting divorced now because of social media. It's just
Yeah.
so easy. I mean, not like people weren't fooling around, pre-social media. Plenty of people were. I just think now that it's so much easier. There's so much more access to it.
Mm-hmm. Look at the dating apps.
Not just the dating apps, but even just regular social media. Every time I go onto Instagram, it's constant like these model women, in like bikinis, and they're like, oh, it's like they're reels. I'm like, I don't give a flying fuck. They're not. That's not what I'm there for.
Well, it's funny
have
too.
you seen LaRocco's Grinder account? It's pretty good. Not gonna
Oh
lie.
yeah, my Grinder is better than anything else you've ever seen. But I'll also point out, and I don't think you guys can deny this, we live in a highly, highly sexualized society. A tremendously over the top. So now consider the fact we do have contraceptives and things to stop it. But nothing is 100%. And you're pushing 400 million people to do nothing but think about sex all day long, act upon it. You should. You should not do it. It's not dirty. It's not this. It's not that. It's great. It's glorified. You should do what makes you happy. Have fun. Go on Tinder and all these different apps. Get as much as you can. But how many mistakes are going to be made? There are people who've taken the pill and it didn't work 1 month. So now you're just raising the amount of people that are going to have to fall on something like Planned Parenthood. I mean, you're just instigating people to do it. You're walking them into the belly. Here, watch these 7 shows showing how happy people are single, that go and have one-night stands every night, that break up the family because they got tired of their sex life. They didn't feel special anymore, or this wasn't as happy as it was. I needed to go exploring again. And then an accident happens, and then boom, you gotta save your career. You gotta save your happiness. Go do this. And it's very funny that that's what it falls on. Especially because in the coming weeks, going forward, we're going to keep talking about somewhat of this topic. And we're going to try and put all the pieces together, because it seems as though it's just, you're walking right into it. It's almost like you're asking for it. Like you're buying a ticket.
Right. It's almost like it's forced on you.
Right. You're watching TV. We spoke about how the leaders are all interconnected with people in mass media. Throughout history, they were always the philosophical leaders. They were always the religious leaders. They were always the kings, the divine right. They tell you what to believe. They tell you what to do. And when you live by that, you know what I'm saying? I heard it was a good show. I don't know if you guys are looking at my screen. Anybody watching, you buy a ticket, you go right in. It's good times.
Yeah, you get a prick.
So, I mean, I don't know if there's anything you guys want to debate about anything I've said, or you have any other thoughts. You're more than welcome. I'm always open to being wrong. I've been wrong a lot. But I've done a lot of thinking about this. Is the silence indicative of things we should say for the next episode?
Yeah, because how far are we gonna talk about this before we get into the next episode?
I don't think we're too far off. I mean, we've already been on for a good. I haven't even been keeping track here. This has been a longer episode, I think. Maybe 2.5 hours. Been on 2 hours.
No, 2.5.
We started about 10:30.
About 11 o'clock.
Oh, okay. So it's about an hour and a half.
2.5. No, about 11 o'clock my time, which is 10 o'clock your time.
But yeah, I mean, closing statements. What do you guys think?
I think the next few episodes are going to be very interesting. And I feel that we might touch on things that either will get people upset, curious, or, might go like, oh, that's a holy shit. So we'll see.
That's a holy shit. I like the way you stated that. Yeah, we will be starting to pull this more modern. So, and I mean, I'll still bring up some stuff from older. I want to kind of lay the cement. I want to kind of lay the foundation. And then we're going to start pulling it closer to our time, closer to things that we already know, or we have known, or we've been suspect of. But like I said, I feel that jumping to the top without laying the foundation is just a lot of people drop off very quickly because they think that the allegations are way wilder than they actually are. I think for any one of us that are sitting here talking about this tonight, that not a lot of this stuff is a far reach at this point.
No, it all ties together quite well. I also feel as if for next episode, Larocco's going to send me a Spark Notes version so I don't have to look up as much shit.
Well, I didn't really Chris knew what we were going to be talking about, but I like to keep it loose like this. So for anyone listening, again, we were talking about, trying to find topics for these shows and how it's tough to kind of stay out of the political realm of it because it bleeds through incredibly. So for anyone else, we don't script these. So basically we come up with a couple of topics that are linked together. We might pull up some websites during the week or draw on things that we've known about. I usually crawl around the internet all week long. I've done it my whole life, looking at different things. I've read conspiracies my whole life. So I think I have a nice big wealth of knowledge when it comes to these topics. But we don't script this. We come on and we pretty much just throw it out there. Mundane had no clue what he was walking into. I don't even think he knew he was coming on.
I literally got a message at 9:45 that was like, "Hey Dogger, you want to come on the show?" And I was just like, "Sure." So, and if we scripted in 2 hours of silence from me, that's fucking amazing.
Yeah, Mundane's a really good writer, as you could tell.
Oh yeah.
And me stumbling over my words all night long. So maybe, that's in my defense. I'm not actually that bad. It's just, we don't script it. We go straight in. And that's why we're also constantly bringing in guests that are sending messages in on the platforms. It's a totally open show, totally open platform. Anybody can comment in. Anybody could listen. And
I mean, I just
we were
stumbled
playing
into
real
the room
time.
and they were like, "We're live."
Well, that was last week. This week he had about 5 minutes, and then we went straight in. But
I had enough time to finish driving home, eat some pizza rolls, and turn on my computer. It was great.
So with that being said, I am not you, said Lou says, I've been wrong many times before. Cliche response, truer words have never been spoken. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, any other closing statements from you guys before I shut it out? Jeez.
Sacrifice your children.
Have a good night, fuckers.
So yeah, thank you to Chris Boninka, as always, for being a fantastic co-host. Mundane the Mouth, thank you for coming on short notice. I would imagine you're going to be joining us next week, or
Yeah,
we do have
I mean,
the holidays.
at least send me like, oh, this is the topic we're going to look at. Send me an article, something.
No problem. Will do. And as usual, thank you for everybody who's tuned in. The numbers have been pretty good tonight. Everybody's been kind of quiet, though. It's very strange. I think we're being watched in silence. But yeah, YouTube hasn't kicked us off. It's been a good night. I hope everybody's having some great holidays, regardless of what holiday they might be celebrating. There's numerous different religions having holidays this season. So I hope you have had a great All Hallows Eve, and had a blast having some pagan ceremonies. And with
And
that,
I hope you've had a good time going out to cut down your evergreen tree for your living room.
yes. And I'm gonna go toss a child into Moloch now. So with that, have a great weekend, guys. Thank you for tuning in again, and we'll see you next time.